Hi, everyone. Is everyone settled? Is now a good time to start? Yeah, okay. Hi, if you don't know me, I'm Ashley. I'm Pastor Rick's daughter. I just came back in August from 2 back-to-back internships with Casas por Cristo, and I am going back to do a residency, so I just kind of wanted to give you guys the download on kind of what I did and then what I'm hoping to do next. And I'm also going to give you a little bit of background about me. So I really love doing mission work. Started doing mission trips in high school. So here was like the first real mission trip I went on to Detroit. And then the next mission trip I went on was with Casas por Cristo to the Dominican Republic. And this is really where I fell in love with Casas por Cristo and what they do. And so something really cool that God was doing already in this experience. The picture on the left side of the two little boys playing basketball. I was in that basketball game. I'm not in the picture, but one of those little kids ended up being an intern with me this past summer. And so just like making connections, even though we didn't know that that connection would come back, I guess. So just seeing how God worked through that already. The next mission trips I did were in college. I got to travel some pretty cool places. I think my favorite one was going to Compton. And so, yeah, you can tell I went to a lot of places that parents dream of their kids going. And then most recently, outside of my internship was our church goes every year to Build with Casas. And this, when was that? 2023 was the first time I was able to go because when I was in college, I wasn't able to make it because of classes. And here I got to get to know people from the church better. And then in the left picture again, the guy on the far right in the gray sweatshirt, his name's Kevin. And I also got to reconnect with him this past October and go and build with his workplace, I guess. And so just seeing how God made connections where I didn't know that they would come back was really cool. And at this build in Juarez was when I first kind of thought about being a missionary. One of Casas's internship developer people was on this trip, and she came and talked to me and was like, hey, have you ever thought being a missionary? And I was like, no, I haven't. And then I didn't think about it again. And so I also thought I'd give you a little bit of information about Casas por Cristo if you don't know about them. So these two pictures, the one on the left is from Juarez, and the one on the right is from El Paso, and it's the same mountain range, just from both sides. Casas por Cristo started in Juarez in 1993, and so you can see how close they are to each other right across from El Paso in Texas. And since 1993, they've expanded to 5 locations, including Acuña, Mexico, Guatemala, the Dominican, and then also in 2023, they started in Honduras. And so the mission with Casas por Cristo is coming into locations where people need to meet Jesus. And so they partner with pastors that live in those locations and already have churches there. And it's not like a specific denomination, it's just like Protestant churches. And the pastors find people in the community who need a home and need to meet Jesus. And so then the people from the United States come, and in 3 days we build them a house. So for the people coming from the States, it's a short-term mission, but the pastors and the committee continue to pour into those families. So they get to continue to have God and just like an impact from God in their lives. And then also, so Casas por Cristo is Spanish for houses for Christ. So that's what that means. Oopsie. And then also with the church, I got to go to Guatemala last year during my first internship. So I was doing an internship in the office. So I was coordinating with the teams coming to do the builds. So getting their flight information, making sure everyone has their passport, helping them figure out how much food do we need and different things like that. So I didn't really get opportunities to build during that internship, the first one, but I got to come with church to build in Guatemala. And so that was my first time going to Guatemala, was last March. And before that, people in the office had been pressuring me to do another internship, and they were like, "Oh, you'd love Guatemala, you'd love it." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, I've never been there." And so then when I came here, I was like, "Oh yeah, I do love it here." And then also, this was really another time of God introducing me to important people. In the picture on the right, the two ladies next to me are Jackie and Anna, and they were both down in Guatemala while I was there for my internship, and I think those two had like some of the biggest impact on me while I was down there. And just really ladies that are both like so in love with God. So it was really cool to get to know them there and then to continue building that relationship later. And then one question I get a lot is, what is Guatemala like? Because people haven't been there. From this picture, it might look like you're in the Black Hills. Sometimes it also looks like you're just like in South Dakota in the farmland. But then other times, you're standing on the side of a volcano, or you're at Mayan ruins. Oh, I'm not good at this clicker, I'm sorry. Or black sand beaches, or looking down at a city with a volcano in the background. It's a really beautiful place. It's about 70 degrees year-round. Even though it's by the equator, I would expect it to be really hot and humid, but it's 70 degrees and it's perfect. And here we have 4 seasons. There they only have 2, wet and dry. So their rainy season is from May to October, and pretty much every day during that time, once it hits 3 o'clock, it's going to be downpouring. And then the rest of the year, from November to April, it's pretty dry. Oh, sorry, there's more pictures of just how it's pretty. And then typical transportation is the one on the left with all the flowers is called a chicken bus. So they get old school buses from the United States and they deck them out with like LED lights and like cow skulls and like window decals. And then that's kind of like taking the subway or something. Like you just hop on the chicken bus and you go. This one was decorated with flowers for a flower festival that they have. And then on the right is a picture from inside something called a tuk-tuk. And then in the picture you can also see another tuk-tuk, and that's kind of like their taxi. It's this little red thing with 3 wheels, and on the inside the driver it's like a motorcycle. So you just hop in one of those and that's your taxi. So I also wanted to show you the town that they're in Guatemala. It's called San Raimundo, which is like St. Raymond. There's about 15,000 people that live there in that town, and that's where the office and the lodging is. But then to do the build, it's about a 2-hour radius in any direction to go build. The people there are super joyful and so kind. I don't know if it's just because we're white, but when you're walking down the street, everyone's going to say hi to you, and they're really happy to see you. And then this is how the streets in the town look. This is pretty much what the streets anywhere look like. And everyone drives super crazy, and so that's why we were walking in a single file line for safety. And then my favorite part about Guatemala is, I think I'm really bad at this clicker, is all the dogs. There's dogs everywhere. In the top left picture, that is a dog barking at me from on top of a roof. And then the bottom left picture, a dog accidentally got inside, and we found it at like 2 in the morning crying in the kitchen. And dogs are just everywhere, and they're so fun. They'll like come up to you, and they're excited to see you. Okay, so then over the summer, there were 6 interns. From left to right, it was Ashlyn, Ronald, Sid, myself, Josh, and Nanette. This is a picture from our second week. We were kind of still figuring out what our dynamics were going to be. And so something really cool again. So Ronald, he's the one who was in that picture of playing basketball in the Dominican, the one second from the left. His dad is on the pastor's committee down there, and so that's kind of how he got connected. And then we realized when I was going through photos, he's like, hey, why do you have a picture of me when I was a kid? And I was like, I don't know. And then we made the connection. And then me and the girl right in the middle, her name is Sydney, and she's actually from Omaha, and she goes to school at USD. So I think we became fast friends because it was nice to have a bit of home while we were in this foreign place. But then on Sunday nights, we did Devos, and the whole theme of the summer was based on this verse, Romans 10, verse 15. How can they preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. And so each Sunday we all got together with our intern manager, Breyer, and his wife, Anna, and we would do Devos together, kind of debrief the week, ways we saw God working, highs and lows, that kind of a thing. And through those Devos, that's kind of how we started to really bond and get to know each other. Most weeks we spent building with teams, but on our off weeks in the office, we would kind of do general upkeep and projects to support the staff. For example, mowing the lawn or organizing the warehouse, transporting things from one building to another. Here we have a ladder. We also learned how to drive manual vehicles. Here's a picture of me. I learned to drive manual a week ago from when this picture was taken, and now I was teaching Nanette how to drive. And the roads in Guatemala are so crazy. They keep the speed limit by putting speed bumps on the road, and so in between the speed bumps, you can go as fast as you want, and then you just slow down for the speed bump. And so everyone's going, and there's a lot of motorcycles on the road too. And there's just enough space between the speed bumps that they can sneak right through so they can go whatever speed they want. So, needless to say, teaching someone how to drive stick was interesting. And then when we weren't doing those things, we were getting into a lot of shenanigans. Here we got stuck when it started downpouring, and so it was like 2 a.m. Someone had to come pick us up. Some acute medical care. Sometimes. And then this is one of my favorite videos. I don't know if it'll play. Nope. Well, I'll explain it. Maybe it won't work. So, some of the build sites to get to them, it's pretty sketchy roads. It's sometimes one way. It's not paved. It's potholes and it's dirt. So there was this road that we were delivering the wood and the tin to the house, and we had tried to go up this road, but it was too steep, so we had to find another way. And once we had delivered the wood, we were like, oh, we should go down that super steep hill. That would be so fun, and just let it go. And then these two decided that they were going to do pull-up contests in the back of the open truck while we were speeding down this hill. And so, yeah, we got into a lot of fun and maybe dangerous situations that we put ourselves in. And then another really cool opportunity was just going to see different churches. If we weren't building with a team that week, on Sunday we could go to churches. And there are quite a few different ones we went to in different towns. In San Raimundo, it's a pretty traditional place. And so in the service, they sing psalms. It's not hymns, they just sing psalms. So someone will name a verse, and then they all just start singing it, and they're clapping and they're dancing. And then some of the more traditional or contemporary services had English and Spanish, and so they were singing songs in both languages, and they had pastors who would go back and forth. This picture here is the largest megachurch in Central America. It's called Casa de Dios, House of God. And this picture here, it looks like I'm in like the way back of like a concert. I'm only a quarter of the way back. There's still 3/4 of people behind me. And so it was really cool just to like worship with so many people. And here it was only in Spanish, and so we had like little translators that someone was speaking to us through the phone. And then I learned a lot through every build. So there were 3 main ones I wanted to touch on just to talk about what I learned. I'll make sure time is good. So this is the first build I was a part of. The first week we get there, the interns do an intern-only build. So typically it only takes 3 days to build the house. We pull it out, expand it over 5 days so that we can see every single part and really understand it. And so we really got to know this family pretty well. The mom's name is Sarah and her son Dylan, and she's a single mom. When they had applied for a house through their pastor, her husband was still living with her, and they were just hoping to move out of his parents' house. But his parents are Catholic, and they decided that they didn't want Sarah living with them anymore. And so they kicked her and her son out. And so the husband comes once a month for 1 day to bring money and food for her son, and then he leaves to go back to his parents' house. And so just to like see her strength even through that difficult time was really amazing. And then the little girl on the right, her name is Alejandra, and we just adored her. She was so excited. She was always bringing us the puppy to play with, and it was kind of like known, oh, if Alejandra comes to grab someone, they're free. They can take a like 10-minute break to go play with her. It's okay. The next one, this is a church or a high school youth group that we built with called Rock Point. And this was like the first build that us interns were leading. So we were all pretty nervous for it, but the kids were so much fun and they just brought so much joy and excitement. And then the picture on the left, they were there an extra day, and so we got to go to a school and help them out in a few different ways. One was some people were repainting, repaving, doing some like general maintenance, and then the other half of the kids put on a little skit for the kids. So it was the Bible story of, I don't remember. It was a Bible story. That's for sure. And then we did some singing and dancing with the kids too, so that was a lot of fun, and it kind of helped all of us interns too to be excited about the rest of the summer. And then, oopsie. This was the second to last week we were there. This church is called Shoreline City. And something that they did that was different than the other teams is just having so much intentionality about spending time with God. So the breakfast time, I think, was scheduled for 8, and they said everyone has to be in the lunchroom at 7 a.m., and we're going to spend an hour with God. No talking, no whatever. You're reading your Bible, you're praying, you're singing worship music. And so I think that set a really nice tone for the week. And then also the people were just so kind. And this build, I was leading by myself. I didn't have another intern to ask questions. I was just kind of on my own. And so I was really worried about that. And whenever I voiced my worries or they could see I was getting flustered, someone would pull me aside and they're like, hey, let me pray for you. We're going to get through this. You're doing a good job. Let's just pray and like give God your anxieties. And so that was really amazing. And then also the family was not Christian. They were not Christians. A lot of the people on the team could speak Spanish. They're a church from Dallas. And so I really encouraged them to spend a lot of time getting to know the family. And the family had been hurt in the past. They used to go to church, but they were really hurt from like gossip and rumors, and people started to like ostracize them. So they were no longer Christians, and just from like the team pouring into them and just spending time with them at the dedication, they gave their lives to Christ. And so it was just so amazing to see like how quickly just having people pouring into them, how quickly like God can take a hold of their hearts. I tried to keep a journal throughout the summer so I could remember everything that happened, but I'm not a good journaler. And one of the things I wrote in my journal while building with Shoreline City was this, and I think it was my biggest takeaway of the summer. I think one of my biggest takeaways of the summer were how I was always exhausted physically and mentally, so busy, and most of the time I was sick. But I don't think I've ever experienced more freedom and joy and contentment in my entire life. It was just so evident how God was working all around me and through each and every interaction. When bad things happened, there was a lesson to learn through it, and when good things happened, we could all celebrate together. And so I think that was really just, my biggest takeaway of the summer is just how important that Christian community is and pouring into each other. And then the last week of the summer was our intern retreat. So we drove all the way south to the southern border of Guatemala, and that's where they have the black sand beaches. It feels like you're standing in cat litter, which is super fun, and it never gets out of your clothes. And it's also really hot. Like, sand is already really hot, but now it's like absorbing all this sun. So I'm not sure if I really recommend it. But we had an Airbnb, and we were right on the beach. So, like, that picture of us there, we were standing, like, at the edge of our Airbnb property, and what looks like white is the ocean. And we had air conditioning. It was amazing. That was the first time we had air conditioning all summer. So we were like, this is amazing. And so, the intern retreat was just kind of time to like debrief and figure out like, what happened over these past 12 weeks? What did we experience? How are we going to take these experiences moving forward? And one of the activities we did is called the Ring of Fire. So on the right side, it was 20 questions that we had to answer, and every single person had to answer. And we went around the circle, and some of the questions were simple, like, what's your favorite memory? Or if you had $10,000, what would you do with it? And then other questions were a little bit more of a thinker. One of them was like, if you could go back and relive one day, what would it be? Or if you could solve one problem in the world today, what would it be and why? Different kind of things like that. And so it was kind of weird that it was right at the end of the experience that we really got to dive deep and get to know people more. But it was just a really good way to, kind of also think about our experience and that kind of thing. And then after the retreat, we only had a couple days left together. And those days were kind of difficult, saying goodbye to our family and our home from the last 3 months. But I think in these days, I also got to see a lot of the impact that we made in such a short time. So this picture is from a meal, we called it the Last Supper, that we did with all the cooks. And then Jackie was leaving as well. She's no longer a missionary there, so us interns and Jackie were leaving at the same time. So we did our Last Supper goodbye, and just seeing what the cooks had to say to us, and thank us for. Like, we stood in a circle. They only speak Spanish, and most of us don't speak that good of Spanish. And so we would type into our Google Translate what we wanted to say, and then we would have one of them read it aloud in Spanish and vice versa. They would type it in Spanish, and we would read it out loud for everyone. So it was just really cool to see the impact there. And then this next two pictures were on our last day. And these were also some impacts. I think big term impact was the picture on the left. That is Jose. He is one of like the day laborers that you can hire. So if you were there in March, he was the extra person they hired to help us when we didn't have enough people. And so for our last night there, us girls wanted to eat together, and he just kind of showed up and joined us. And he was like, thank you to us, because he said, us Guatemalans, we aren't always able to help ourselves. We get in the way a lot, and we are making things worse for each other. And so thank you for being able to see the good in us and being able to help us help ourselves. And so I just liked that. That stuck with me because, I guess we don't really see the day-to-day. We just come in for a week, but he sees the long-term impact from living there. And then on the right side, just kind of seeing the small impact and individual impact we had. That's Renee in the middle, and he is a server at our favorite restaurant called Gatos. It's a sports bar, and Gatos means cats, so it's kind of weird when you think about it. And he's our favorite server there. We would always be like, Renee, how are you, you know? And he doesn't speak English at all either. And so we had very short conversations with him. But at our last meal that we had there, we let him know that, or our second to last meal, we let him know that we would be coming back tomorrow, and that would be the last time we ate there. And then when we took this picture, he had bought all of us wallets. And he was like, I love getting to know you girls. Like, I hope to see you again. And I was just thinking about it, like, in high school, I worked at a restaurant, and we had our regulars, but if they told me they weren't coming back, I don't think I would have bought them anything, you know? And so just that he was kind enough to do that, and just seeing, that impact again. I guess I'm saying that a lot. Oopsie. So what's next for me is a residency. I'm hoping to begin that in April. That would give me the most amount of time between their busy season of spring break and the busy season of summer break. And the residency is really similar to an internship, but it's on a longer basis and with more responsibilities. So I'll still be building with teams a lot of weeks, but instead of cleaning the warehouse on days when I'm not, I'll have a more impactful role in the office. So each staff member is kind of assigned their individual task in the office, like being the intern manager, keeping the merch store stocked and organized, taking care of materials. So I'll be assigned one of those, and that'll be my baby to take care of while I'm there. And so the best ways that you can support me moving forward, the best way to support me is through prayer. And I think, I don't need to say much about that. That's the best way any of us can support anyone. And if you want to stay up to date with like specifics of what you can pray for me for, in the back on the two little standy tables, on one of them I have a sign-up sheet, so you can sign up with your phone and email, and then I can add you to my newsletter list. And then, I had QR codes. I forgot to put them out. We'll just ignore that. And then on that back there are also these prayer cards. It has a little picture of me. And so I just ask that every family takes one of those and you put it up somewhere. Put it on your fridge, stick it in your car, put it on your bathroom mirror or something. And then whenever you see it, you just say a quick prayer for me. And that can go a long way, I think. And then in the back there is also, I don't know what to call this card. And that one, both of those cards have a QR code to scan, and that'll bring you directly to the page where you can donate to me. And then this one also has information about how to send payment by mail. But one of the main differences between the internship and residency is the amount of support I need to raise. The financial need is much greater. For both of the internships, I just had to raise $3,000 flat, and that went to Casas to pay for my lodging and my food and the training build and that kind of a thing. But here, it's going to me as my paycheck, because now I'm going to be living in an apartment that I'm renting. I'm going to be buying my food. I'm still paying off my student loans, and it'll cover everything from that. And I'm really thankful the church has me as the mission of the month for February. And so everything from the offering will go directly into my support account. And Casas for Cristo does a great job of supporting me through this process. And one of those ways is they help me create my budget. So I know what I need to cover all those things. And in order to go in April, I need to be fully funded at $2,700 in monthly support. And so that includes the lump sum, but it's really great if I can get monthly supporters, because I'm hoping that at the end of this, there might be an opportunity for me to go full-time if that's what God says is the right way to go. And then everything that's monthly donation can just keep going, and I don't have to start over fundraising. So to get to the 2,700, right now I'm a little over 10% of the way there. So I just ask that while you pray for me, when you see my prayer card, you also pray and see what the Lord says what part you should have in this as well. So yeah, those cards are in the back. And I had QR codes. I don't know. Do you guys want QR codes to scan for my newsletter? Or no comment? Okay. I also wanted to kind of end early so that if you guys had questions about anything else, I can answer them. So does anyone have any questions about me or Guatemala or Casas por Cristo, or just like any question, I guess, will be fine. What's up, Todd? How do we pour cement when it rains? Well, we hope that we can get it poured before it rains. But if it started to look like clouds were rolling in, then we would pour it super dry. So in Guatemala and Mexico, or not Mexico, in Guatemala, the Dominican, and in Honduras, we hand pour the foundation of the house. And so you're carrying buckets and dumping them into the mixer, and then you're pulling it, and yeah, you're doing it all by hand. In Mexico, they get concrete trucks, so that's really handy. But yeah, so we just pour it super dry. Instead of doing however much water we're supposed to do, we like cut it in half and try our hope that it's gonna work out, and pray too. Oh. Is language a barrier at all was the question. So for me, I took Spanish in high school and a little bit in college. And so I think going down there, I just kind of remembered what I had already learned. But for the dedication especially, and to trying to figure out where the house is going, and the family can kind of customize the house a little bit. They can tell you which way they want the roof and where they want the windows. And so for conversations like that and for the dedication, I'm nowhere near equipped to be able to have that conversation. And so they have, well, you just kind of meet friends. I don't know how. Like one day we were at the convenience store getting some chips and Coke. And then we just met this guy that is from California, and he moved back to Guatemala after his mom got sick. And he's like, hey, what do you guys do? Like, you guys are Americans, you know? And so we told him, and he's like, well, hey, I'd love to be a translator for you if you ever need help. And so we started hiring this random guy named Johnny to come to our dedications and translate for us. And so, yeah, like, I think for the day-to-day stuff, I say I'm just barely, just below conversational, so I can get by. But then, yeah, for the important stuff, we make random friends, and they help us out where they can. Yeah, so what kind of transportation to get from my apartment into the work sites? So the apartment is actually already picked out. So it's like a one-bedroom studio apartment, and it's actually really close to the office. Everyone in San Raimundo pretty much, like if you don't have a motorcycle, you're probably gonna walk. So we spend a lot of time walking over the summer. And so, yeah, I'll be walking to the office and to the warehouse and everything that's in San Raimundo. But then to get to the work sites, Casas por Cristo has like a fleet of vehicles. So they have a couple buses that the team rides on, and then the missionaries can use the trucks that they have to put all the tools in. And so that was when we needed to learn how to drive stick, because all of the fleet vehicles are manual. Yeah, so the question is talking about economics and that kind of climate and how it relates to religion. So the currency there is called the quetzal, and for every U.S. dollar, it's 7 or 8 quetzales. And the families typically take home probably maybe like the equivalent of 60 US dollars a week. And that's kind of on the high end for the families we're building for. And so they don't really make very much money. And so you really see a lot of community coming together to help each other out. But most of the country is Catholic. There's a lot of Protestant churches, but most people, if you ask them, they would say, "Oh yeah, we're Catholic," and then they go to Catholic church on Christmas, and that's what it is. So it's not very many people practicing their Catholic faith. And then, yeah, it is a lot of very community, like some of the houses we built for the whole kind of little neighborhood would share one bathroom and one kitchen. And so everyone's pouring their money together to buy food and to be able to provide for everyone together. Okay. Well, if no one has any other questions, I'll let you go. But just know that you can always come and grab me at church or shoot me a text or whatever, and I'd be happy to answer any questions for you. And yeah, the donation cards and the prayer cards are on the table there. And then there's also the sign up, and I'll throw those QR codes on that same table too, so to make it easy for everyone. So thank you for listening.